Hey ho people, it's Stylosa and Kirioth, and this is our fantastical Guild Wars 2 beta report. Now, first of all, I was met with a nice surprise. I was waiting for the beta countdown clock to go to, well, 0. Only it actually started an hour before. At least it did in my time zone, and I was quite surprised because I was sitting there, getting ready, like, yep, gonna do a live stream, and good lord, all of a sudden the game was live. My contacts in the industry, that means people from unitlost.com, were going, Sty, it's gone live, and I was like, So that
it's
was
a rare treat, that isn't
it was a rare treat. It was quite nice, and I was like, well, okay. I thought maybe this was just a way to get you in and make you class or your character before the game started, but no, it actually was live, so that was a good start. But let's get the badness out of the way to begin with. The service did go down on Saturday. I couldn't connect for, oh my god, about 3 hours. It was quite a lot of downtime. I know it wasn't the same for everybody else, worldwide. Certain areas had specific problems, but that was a bit of a pain up the ass. Although, to be honest, it was probably a needed break. As a man could possibly lose his sanity.
I was going to say, how long do you reckon you actually spent on it this weekend?
Well, I don't know. I mean, in terms of the live stream, I think there's about... You know what, I don't even know. I think there's like 12, 13 hours or something of live stream content that we did. But the game was constantly on. It's all I did all weekend. I'm like, I must understand this game. Good
dedication
Lord.
To the cause.
Dedication to the cause. So there was a lot of Guild Wars 2 gameplay. That's why. I mean, Kirioth played it a lot himself. I mean, he's got a good 10 hours under his belt. So it's like, I've got a good idea of what actually went on during the beta, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video. Get some of the more debatable topics, I think, covered. So I think to begin with, the game difficulty, this is a good point, was quite refreshing to say the least. Now I was a level 2 Char Guardian, faced with impossible odds against the Flame Legion Shaman, and I died loads of times. And I also died at various points throughout the game, all the time. And this was quite refreshing. Because, well, like World of Warcraft, you could quite feasibly get all the way to level, whatever the max level is these days. It's 85, ain't it? And not die. Most definitely you could... You won't die level 1 to 10 unless you're an absolute... you've got some kind of mental disability. I mean, because apart from that, you're just not going to die.
It shocked me how quickly I died. Yeah, so I was expecting like the cushion zone.
Yeah.
Where you can do whatever you like. You can be a complete idiot. You still won't die because nothing does any damage. But no. When I started my my human mesmer, that big old rock elemental thing just insta killed me.
Well, no, what
I was dead. I wasn't even able
to.
It was just goodbye.
Also the same for the Norn. The Norn start area had the same with the like a worm. You're supposed to kill this big worm, and it just...
Yes. My necromancer got killed 4 times by that. Someone kept rezzing me, but as soon as I came back, I'd have like 5 health or 10 health or something, and then I'd die instantly again.
Yeah, it was quite bad. Like, so, I guess you could say, well, okay, is that really difficult? That was just like instant death, and you did not know why you died. It was like, okay, but like just fighting the general mobs in the zones, they were a bit more difficult to deal with up to a point than they were in they are in other MMO games. But it is the beta, and one of the betas. I would hope that it's not going to get nerfed down in terms of difficulty, because it. I don't even know how many times I died, and I'm not a noob by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, a little quick thing on my history, I played EverQuest 2 for about, nearly 3 years, and I was a main tank in a raid guild. I was a raid leader, I knew what I was doing. I played World of Warcraft. Not up to the high levels of raiding, because to be honest, I was kind of burnt out from the days in EverQuest 2, but I still played the game. So by no stretch of the imagination am I a noob at these games, but I was getting killed repeatedly. I'm like, this is disgusting. But also good at the same time. So we like that. We like the fact it was difficult, and we want that to remain. Because if it starts getting too easy, then what is the point?
It's making it rewarding, isn't it? It was like every time I died, I didn't think, oh, that was unfair. Quite often I died largely because it was my own fault. Like the Ascalonian ghost lads, my Char warrior. I would quite often take on 2 or 3 at a time. And I couldn't, and I knew I couldn't, but I'd do it because that's the habit you get into playing MMOs, isn't it? You can grind mobs, that's how it works. and I was not given that option in Guild Wars 2, and I died a few times due to me thinking, oh yeah, I can do this, when actually I couldn't. But that is a good thing, because every time you got through like a hairy situation, you thought, oh, that was good. Survived that, I made it out, rather than, on to the next one.
I mean, it's talking about the gameplay itself. You don't... You get one quest, right? Now, bearing in mind, we only had my character, my main character was level 18, I think. He might have been level 19. See, I can't even remember. It was that much of a blur. He was a Char Guardian, and he completed his entire personal story up to the beta. What the beta would allow. Obviously, it just said you need to come back when the game's in release to play the rest of it. But that is like the only quest you sort of get. It's like that's a quest in a traditional sense. You get it from an NPC. You then complete the quest. You go back to the NPC. You get a reward. Blah blah blah. Everything else is like a world event. Now this might be a bit strange to some people that don't actually know, or have played World of Warcraft exclusively, where everything is a quest. You go to an NPC, he says kill 10 of this, you do that, you come back to the NPC, he then gives you a reward, you then go to the next NPC, get the next quest, you do quests in areas and you move off. Well, the way it works in Guild Wars 2 is there are heart-shaped icons on the map which are basically a public quest. Now what a public quest is, it just means anybody at any point during the quest, if they're in that area, can take part in that quest. Now this has got positives and negatives. Obviously the positive thing is you don't have to have this journal, this quest log full of loads of quests that you're deleting or you're getting rid of, because you don't actually get the quests until you're in the area where the quest is. So if I'm running through a zone and there's a giant attacking a town, which happens in one of the char zones, it's like this giant needs to die, so the quest is just kill the giant. But obviously you need loads of people to kill the giant, so you're fighting this giant, more and more people are turning up. Eventually the giant dies. When he's dead, you actually did get loot off his body, which seemed to be quite random, because at one point I had a bronze level contribution, because this is the way it classifies it. Like gold, you did the most damage, the most healing, the most revives, or you're in the top tier of that. Silver is obviously the next down, then bronze or copper or whatever you want to call it is like the worst contribution. However, I had the worst contribution to this, but still got green rewards. Now, green rewards are like I think they're mastercrafted stuff, which is kind of like a Warcraft blue. I think that's kind of the easiest way to sort of classify it. Well, I got that, and it's like, well, okay. But going back to my original point, because I tend to go off the point like a crazy. The quests are on an area basis. So you turn up to an area. Say Kiriov's already in the area and he's taking part in a quest to fight back the ghost army or whatever. I turn up and I can take part in that. But if he's been there from the start and he's done he's contributed more to the completion of that quest, then generally he gets a better reward, which I'm fine with that. But it's like, how does it? I don't understand how it quantifies your contribution. Is it? If you're primarily a healer and you're healing, is that the same contribution level as a DPS class? Or if you are a guardian but you are specialising in like attack prevention, damage absorption, how does it quantify that then? Because the guardian puts these domes of like protection over the area, so you can reflect projectiles or absorb damage. How does it quantify that? That's a bit. That's what I'm a bit worried about. And also, before I let Kiriov jump in, a thing which I think could be quite negative in terms of these public quests is they're not really hard. Now they are, and they're not, because you could have somebody who's so bad at the game, but he can just hide in the crowd. You won't really know he's there, provided the people, because often these events, when they get more complicated, it's a case of people need to man, the trebuchets, or people need to plant landmines, or people need to click on this thing when it becomes activatable, or people need to be standing here. Well, so long as you've got enough people doing that, the rest of the people there doing the quest can kind of do anything. It doesn't really matter, and they're still going to get rewarded for it. And I think that's a bit dodgy.
That is actually something that I got quite concerned about when I was a couple of levels below the required level for killing. I think it was the Flame Shaman or something. It took ages. It was like half an hour of just
He's
constant
notorious,
fighting.
though, that lad.
And I mean, I was only like level 2 or level 3, something like that. I know I was a good few levels below what you needed to be to go anywhere near him. And as a warrior with a sword, I could do one thing, which was attack him. But if I hit him and he hit me back, I would die. Like instantly. Not sort of, oh, that was a bit close. It was just, I was dead straight away. So all I could do was sort of hang around the edges of the fight and revive people, and I got a silver contribution for that.
Yeah.
Now, okay, fair enough. I suppose if I wasn't there, then perhaps people wouldn't have been revived as quickly. But the fact is, I wasn't the only person reviving. You know, there are a lot of people who would stop combat to get their allies up. And I was contributing nothing to the DPS of getting the guy down. I wasn't healing anyone, because I can't, because I was a warrior.
But you're still contributing to the fight. I think that's what it's probably reward you on. But the fact remains, like, it's still a bit stupid because, I mean, I've got an even worse example of this. I did the Incendrio Templum, I think I've pronounced that right, quest, which was a public event, which you had to go in and assault the Flame Legion headquarters, which then opened a portal, which took you into like this crypt area, which then, you know, you could eventually fight the champion of the Flame Legion. Like, now, the monsters in this area were level 27. I was level 17. Like, if these hit me, I would die. But I was still there, and I'm still getting rewarded. I actually got a gold contribution for that, for the first part of that quest, or public quest, or whatever the hell you want to call it. And really, I was just along for the show. I mean, yeah, I've got heals, so, you know, I can heal, I can do this, I can do that. And that's great. But really, I was nothing. You know, these events scale up based on the amount of people there as well. So really, you could say that I was making the event harder because I was just there and not really doing anything, because I died a hell of a lot of times and people were reviving me. And of course, they're going to revive me if that's what they're getting credit for when it comes down to the thing. But it's a bit strange. It's quite strange. And without everybody being at the top level, these events are sort of a bit challenge pointless. If you know, it's like I could be. You could have somebody who's so poor at the game, but they're still going to get a good reward or some kind of reward, even though they're not really doing anything.
Yeah, and the danger something that I found actually with quite a few of the heart quests, like the little areas where you go instead of getting the quest from the NPC, where you go to the little heart. I've found that quite often I'd get there just as the quest was sort of kind of getting completed. It's like the more people who are there, the shorter time it takes, because it's like a progress bar that you fill up. And I could do like one thing, and then suddenly I'd completed it. Yeah. But that was it. I'd just go in, kill a monster, and suddenly I'd have completed it. And
but going back to the point of the you get no reward for these quests. You do. You get a reward in karma. You get a reward in in-game gold. Karma's like a reputation type of currency. If you think World of Warcraft, you get reputations from towns and places like that. When you'd actually done the quest, the NPC who is responsible for the quest doesn't give you the quest, because you get the quest for being in the area. You can then go and buy stuff off them for karma. So that's sort of how it's done. So you could redo the quest again and again and again just to get more karma. I think that's the idea, which, you know, I don't think they're bad. I was quite surprised to, you know, see they were the only quests available. You know, I was looking for, I thought it was going to be a case of there'd be loads of standard quests and then there'd be these like big centerpiece, you know, open world events, but they're not. That's it. The open world events are the quests, and it was a bit, I don't know what to make of it. It's a bit strange. On one hand, it's really good. On the other hand, it's a little bit, you know, if you be cynical about it, it's a bit like, you know, bleh. This guy over here is not doing anything, but I'm keeping this raid going, or this group going, and he's going to get a reward, and I don't like that. But that's like elitist talk, but, you know, whatever. So let's move on from this point. So another thing, right, which really pissed me off, this did, zoom. Now, you couldn't zoom out very far from your character. Now, I'm one of these players, and I think actually most people are, considering the people I've spoke to, who like to zoom out a hell of a lot. You know, like, so you can see a lot of the world going on. You know, your character's generally not that big. I know you like this as well, Kiri. You know, so they're quite small. But the game, it sort of, it forces you to have the view range it wants you to have. Now, I hope this isn't the way it is when it launches, because I don't like that. Like, when I'm just questing, generally, well, I say questing, when I'm just running around the world, it's too close, really too close to my character. Yet, if I'm in a certain quest, like to kill this giant, for example, it zooms out miles because the giant's obviously massive. And it's like, hang on a minute, why can't I just do this anyway? It's so wild. But I don't want to talk about the negatives. Well, we kind of have for quite a bit, but it's like, because it is a really good game. I must stress that it's quite a good game. And if anybody knows the American English to UK English translation picture, which I believe is quite famous on the internet, when an English person says quite good, it means it's very good.
But then what would very good be?
I don't know. That's like the highest.
Good lord.
Good lord, this is so pure. I cannot believe it.
That's how I describe Guild Wars 2. I could have carried on playing it for don't even know how long.
You can't say that before we've put forward a rounded argument. So, I think. Oh well, one of the things which absolutely did not work in my head was when you cast, you can move. Now I'm like, I turn up, yeah. Right, okay, lads. I mean, I had a level 80. Well, I say I still obviously have a level 80 mage from Warcraft. So, you cast a spell, you do not move. You will interrupt that spell. If you cast a channel spell, so you've got your little progress bar, your channel bar, you stand still. Right, now this is extremely hard to break out of your mind. Because it's so deeply ingrained, you do not move, that I'm standing there attacking. And I'm like, I can move, but I don't. What? Oh God, it was bad.
I didn't even realise at first. I didn't even know. I was just so sort of ingrained in the whole just casting. You shall stand where you are, and I was like getting hit by stuff and getting AOE'd and what's going on here? And
that's actually quite a good point as well. If somebody fires something at you, you can jump out of the way of it. You can dodge. It's bound to double tap WA, WAS and D, so your directional keys. You double tap D, you jump to the right. But also, you can just run out of the way of these projectiles, and it won't hit you like in WoW. If a mage fired a fireball at you, it's going to lock onto you and hit you. You're not going to get away from it. But in this, you can actually get away from it. It's like, whoa! I think it's like a progression of, and I think this is kind of coming back to the way the game as a whole feels. Is you are now responsible for your own life. In a sense, it's more realistic. Like in WoW, in EverQuest, the tank, he takes the damage, the healer keeps the tank alive, the DPS kill the target. It's the holy trinity. That's the way it's always been. And apparently will ever, always will be. But not with Guild Wars. It's like, yeah, people can heal. But from what I've seen, they're not exactly super heals. It's not like this is going to fully heal you. It's like a little piddly heal. Or it's some kind of ability which prevents damage completely. Obviously, with my experience of the Guardian, some of the abilities there, they would totally remove damage on people in an area, or like block incoming damage. So there's a bit of skill there, but all of a sudden, you are now responsible for your own life. So, Mr. I don't know, Ranger, he has to keep himself alive. He can't just expect to stand there, take damage, and a healer heal him, because it's not really going to happen. He needs to be looking at the game and thinking, right, I need to jump out of the way of this. This warrior's about to charge me. Right, he's charging me now. I'll roll out of the way. He's missed me. Okay, now I'm going to do this. It's so much more involved as like a combat system than any other game. From a single player perspective, But obviously, we haven't really had the experience of. Well, I say we haven't really. We just haven't had the experience of any high level stuff because we're only like approaching level 20 is what the beta would allow. But it's. In terms of content, anyway, you could go above level 20 in the beta. It's like this refreshing take on it.
It's more of an action game feel than an MMO feel to me. And something else that I quite liked about it was the heals that I saw being used, and this was largely in World versus World. It was, they did help, and they would keep you alive, but they're like a supplement. It's there to just give you that little bit that you lost in the time it took you to roll out of the way. It's not you can stand in that big pit of fire and we'll keep you alive. We're keeping you alive just long enough to get out of it.
Yeah. This is another example of it. I keep going back to this giant, but he's a good example. He had like a ground stomp, which it instantly killed me if I was in it. But you knew he was going to do it because he'd raise his feet up in the air and go and stamp the ground. Well, of course, as soon as I'd seen him raise his feet, I'd turn on. I can't remember what it was, but it was Aegis of something, and it would obviously proc, and I'd take no damage, and then I'd continue hitting it, and it's like, that's where it's reactive. You know, I've blocked that ability. If I hadn't pressed that button, I think it was F3, I would be dead. And there's no way I'd be brought back because I'm dead, you know, under his melee range. So if anybody tries to revive me, he's just going to stamp on their heads as well. So that's I like that. That's quite good. Another thing which kind of sent me a bit crazy, like did not compute, was the way the classes work. You've got a... Who would be a good example of this? Guardian's not really that much of a good example for this. It's not.
I think for me the Warrior's the best example.
Well, let's use Warrior and Elementalist. I mean, Warrior. Okay, he's a warrior, right? So you look at other games. Warrior is most likely the tank. Yeah, he's got heavy armor. He can do some kind of damage, but it's usually not the best. But you know, primarily he's a tank. Well, in this game, it would appear that he is like ranged, super, really good range DPS, dead good DPS in any other form. You know, it's like, why? Hang on a minute. Why is he using? I mean, well, your example's the gun. Tell him about the gun.
Ah, yep, that was ridiculous. I'd managed to acquire a rifle of some kind, and I thought to myself, it was during World vs. World again, and I was getting completely slammed. I was going in and getting killed, and I equipped this gun, and discovered that suddenly I was capable of doing massive single target damage from range. And I'm not talking about, I'm taking pot shots at the enemy. No, every hit applied a bleed effect that did damage over time. And it stacked to I don't even know what. And the more abilities I unlocked, the more I realised that, hang on, this warrior, this tank, the guy with the heavy armour, the massive sword, and possibly even a shield.
Tank's not even a concept in the game, is it? But carry on.
No, but that's the traditional view I had of warrior. And then suddenly I was sitting there, literally out-sniping other ranged classes. A couple of times I came up against like a necromancer or an elementalist, and the elementalist be throwing down AoEs and giant dragon tooth flame things, and I'd be stood there in my heavy armour with my rifle, dealing huge single target damage. And part of me just went, "Whoa, hang on, what? Sorry, what class am I playing again? Is this warrior? I don't get it. What's happening?"
This goes back to the thing of the way the skills work in the game as well. Like you don't have that many abilities in terms of, like, you know, in WoW, every time you level up, you get a new ability. Yeah, it's not dependent on what weapons you've got equipped, but it is in Guild Wars 2. So, you know, I'll use the Guardian as an example for me because that's the class I played the most. If I had a long sword equipped, like a great sword, I was like an AoE god, but I had a completely different set of abilities. Now, if I had a scepter and a shield equipped, the scepter gave me 3 abilities, the shield gave me 2 abilities. Now, the thing with Guild Wars is you can switch, you can have like another weapon set ready to roll, so in the combat, you could quickly switch from the scepter and shield build, which was like a ranged support DPS / like healer type of build for the Guardian, to a great sword. I'm in your face and I'm going to do massive damage to everybody who's near you, and it was like well over the top ridiculous in like the blink of an eye. But it's kind of, again, it was kind of hard for me to get used to this because I'm used to having everything available all the time, not being restricted to, you can only do this because you've got this equipped, but if you change your weapon, you get this. Now, the Elementalist, before I let Kiri jump in, the Elementalist was the same type of thing, only well worse, because he had she had different, she was a female Char I was playing, she had different, air, earth, fire and water, and obviously whichever attunement you had active at the time completely changed your ability sets for whatever weapons you had at the time. So this is like, well, okay, so you could have a dagger and a dagger, right? So you get primary dagger skills and then secondary dagger skills for fire. But then you switch to water, they completely change. Then you switch to air, they completely change. It's like, oh my god. But what happens if you want a scepter? Oh, totally different. Or like a dagger in, I forget what they were called, like a symbol or whatever, in your other hand. Oh, completely different again. What about a staff? Oh, completely different again. And then, not to mention, these 4 different sets of elements you could switch to. And then you get these utility skills, which you can switch out before you go into combat, of God knows how many abilities. And it's like, really, it looks... The UI does a good job of making it look minimalistic when really it's quite complicated. And in fact, like from an elementalist point of view, which I believe is probably the most complicated going, the amount of abilities that you've got at your disposal is like ridiculous. It's like, what have you got? You've got 20, and then based on whatever weapon selections you've got, I don't even know.
It's something that it took me by surprise as well, because I didn't actually try the Elementalist in the end. It was on my list, but I never got round to it. But even just switching out various weapons as a warrior, and the warrior is, I'd say, it's probably one of the most simple professions in the game, because there's, it's going to be damage or damage really, unless you have a shield equipped, in which case you might be invincible for a little bit. But just switching from things like a hammer to a sword, like a two-handed hammer to a greatsword. Now, with the hammer, I was doing, like, not loads of damage, but you could disrupt enemies and you could knock them over, or you could knock them back, or you could stun them. And I thought, well, okay, how different is a greatsword going to be? Oh, well, the greatsword is completely different because that does, like, AoE damage. And then you switch to a gun, which is a weapon that you don't even think of, putting in the hands of a warrior, and suddenly you're doing massive single target damage over time. And when you first start, it does a very good job of, you look at your skills and think, oh well, I've got 5 abilities, and then as soon as you get a new weapon or a new main hand or a new offhand, it just changes completely, and you've got to sort of rethink the way you play, because you can't quite do it the same way you did before.
I think the danger of all this, the danger of it is you're most likely going to end up with like an optimal weapon set for said class. Like, it's going to be, you're a warrior and you're a DPS, okay, you need to be longbow, not short sword or any of that crap. Get the longbow, it does the most damage in any situation. I think that kind of, and also, quickly note this, I believe that range DPS, although I guess this is kind of true in almost any MMO, is simply better at dealing damage than a melee class. But it's kind of like really amplified in Guild Wars 2 at the moment, because, let's use the giant again. You're going for the giant. If you don't have your blocking skill ready or whatever, the giant's going to kill you. You're dead. But the range can just literally sit there using its abilities. It's not hard for them. It's much harder for the melee classes, and it's like, it seems a little bit strange. And also in the PvP. Now, in fact, let's just cover the PvP now. I was quite impressed with that, especially the World v World. But the point I was making was, if you're, say, in the World v World and you're protecting a castle, or a keep, or a fort, or a rampart, or whatever, if you're standing on top of the battlements and you're just raining ranged attacks down, you're causing quite a lot of damage. Now, if you're somebody like a warrior or a guardian and you want to go in and do close range damage, you can forget it, because you can't go down there, because you will instantly die, because they're all outside your castle. So you need to get your ranged weapon on. But that's kind of the beauty of it. You can just switch to your ranged weapon. So you do have all this stuff available to you. But the only thing that worries me is, like, will there ever be a point where you'd be shoehorned into doing one thing, because that's quite literally is the best way of doing it. I'm not too sure whether it is going to do that. I mean, it's hard to comment because we haven't, seen it. We're not at end game. We're not saying, this is what it's been like for months and months. This has only been a quick beta. But I don't know. It's kind of a little bit worrying. But let's talk about the PvP though, because that was quite ridiculous.
That was the best part of the game for me, I think. It didn't feel like other MMO PvP does. It was a lot more hectic, and there was a lot more going on. It felt a lot more personal because of the way you interact with the character and the way the skills work. Instead of this whole, we're going to have to stand still and fling spells at each other until one of us is dead. You're able to dodge AoE attacks, you had to evade people coming after you, with the ability to switch weapons in and out. I mean, I killed a couple of people because I'd be using the gun, and I'd be bleeding them as they came towards me, and as soon as they came within range, I could switch out to the sword and suddenly be doing huge damage to them that way. And it felt a lot more satisfying than I think any other MMO PvP has done for me. It's massive as well. I think that's the thing. It's just massive. I mean,
the world v world. I mean, you do get standard PvP where you're fighting like your Warsong Gulches and places like that. You know, it's like a little pitched battle. But the world v world is just a massive, absolutely. It's like Ultra Valley on steroids. It's like 1,000% bigger. It's fucking massive, and it's like you've got a base there. That you've each got like a home region, and then you can invade the enemy regions, and then this massive region in the middle where everybody's fighting for, land and stuff like that. And it's like you get to a point where you're attacking a castle, and there's like 50 people on each side at that castle. Not to mention what's going on in the rest of the world, like this massive war, and it is like visually looks impressive. It was laggy. But the game, as they've said, is not optimised at the moment. So, I mean, it was kind of laggy anyway in the single player experience, like it should have been. Faster, but like I said, it's not optimised. Hopefully, it will get optimised. Well, it definitely will get optimised. So that shouldn't even really be a problem. But like, just the sheer size of it, it's like the first time you see it, it's like, holy shit, this looks crazy. I mean, you might have trebuchets going off, smashing a castle in, and that. I think a lot of it is like the image that you're creating in your mind. No doubt you're listening to me and Kiri now and thinking, Jesus Christ, this sounds amazing. It is, but there are some dodgy points.
I think one of the biggest dodgy points is, as we said before, the sort of prevalence of ranged classes. I mean, as a warrior, I have no choice but to switch out to a gun.
Yeah, but that doesn't really matter though, because you could just argue, well, yeah, you can just switch to ranged. It doesn't matter. So you can still do something. My main problem was the gate, the big bad gate. Oh dear.
Yeah, that was it was soul destroying, wasn't it? It just was. It was.
So let's build a picture. Paint the picture, son, for everybody watching. Paint the picture. I mean, they can already see because they're watching the gameplay footage, but paint it anyway.
Well, we were there. We were in front of the enemy keep. The unit lost crew. We were winning big, as we always do. And there was the gate. And all you've got to do to get into the castle and kill the Lord. Is it the Lord Commander? I might have just made that up.
I think no, Lord Commander's Game of Thrones, ain't it?
It is, yeah. But the chap in charge of the castle, you've got to
call
break
him the
down
Lord
the
Commander.
gate.
It's amazing. Lord Commander.
The Lord Commander, and then you've got to go and kill the guy who, the NPC inside the castle. It sounds simple breaking down the gate, but it is not, because the gate has got so much health, you cannot even believe it. There are raid bosses with less health than the gate. The
gate is like unstoppable. Right. Now, what generally happens is you have all the defenders above the battlements, right, like round the gate. You have the attackers trying to smash the gate down with all their ranged attacks and crazy melee people running in and getting killed instantly by all the fire. But it's like this fight that just goes on and on and on and on and on. They can repair their gate, but you can damage it. Obviously, you can build siege equipment, so you could build a big fuck off trebuchet, which is like a massive catapult, and start shelling the gate, and eventually you will smash the gate down. But I'll be honest, I went AFK. In fact, I went and got something to eat, right, and then came back, and this gate must have gone down 10% in health. I mean, and it wasn't like there were just 10 people there. Oh no, there were like loads of people, like absolutely shitloads of people attacking this gate, and I just gone AFK and come back, and it was still going on. I was like, Jesus Christ, what is going on here? It looks as if this fantastic idea of all this crazy PvP is just coming down to this like strange gate combat, which is quite strange. But having said that, you do get some good points. Like on the minimap, you can see where supply caravans are going, and if you attack the supply caravans, you get supplies for your team, which you can use to build things like trebuchets and stuff like that, and siege equipment. Like you get like battering rams you can smash the gates in with and things like that. You could go and attack them. And that's quite good. That is like you could set up like a raiding party.
They've done that very sensibly as well, because actually it did take out just so long to get rid of the gate. But as soon as siege engines came into it, I mean, there were 2 battering rams were made, and I think there was a couple of catapults. And as soon as those are made, the gate actually goes down quite quickly. Well, I say quickly in comparison to standing there punching it with your face. It went down quickly, but
it tended to go really fast after that point. As soon as the gate went, you're only really looking at like 5 minutes, and the entire castle's been like obliterated, and you've won. Now I don't know whether because it was so unbalanced, or we had like a massive amount of attackers compared to defenders. I don't know, but the really good things for me about the PvP I've seen so far, it's on like an epic scale. You have not seen anything like this. This is massive PvP, right? I mean, it's just massive. There seems to be everything. There seems to be something to do for everybody. Like if I wanted to turn up with like a small unit loss group, say 10 people, we could go and attack camps. We could go and wreck supply trains. We could probably take maybe like some of the smaller little town base type places, but you know, we're gonna have no chance of taking out a keep because there's gonna be too many people there. But that means we can still do these like surgical strikes, which will help your war effort as a whole, because if you're cutting their supplies off, they're not getting supplies into their, you know, their war effort, but you are, and it's like that's a really good thing. And I mean, like Kiriov said, the PvP is what really shone. I mean, even for me during the bit, it really shone. It was like, this looks absolutely ridiculous. It's like something you could play for quite some time. But as we said, the gate thing is a bit bleh. Like you're just at the gate, and that was a bit like dumb. But you know, everybody's clueless. Well, everybody's a bit clueless, so we don't.
Maybe with time that'll be something that turns out to be a bit better, and also with it only being a weekend event, with it still being the beta, there wasn't a great amount of teamwork going on. I mean, as the game
no, it was just a massive clusterfuck at the big fights. Yeah, you didn't know what was going on.
So I mean, hopefully it's something that will get better, but it was definitely one of the bits that you kind of thought this could do with a little bit of work. But the best thing about the World v World and the PvP is it feels like a proper war. It's not just this is one area, this is another area, off you go. You know, fight in the middle, whoever wins gets to take the lot. You actually do have to be sensible and strategic about it. I mean, as Stylosa said, if we went in as like a 10-man group, yeah, you can't take on a keep with just that number of people, but you can actually help the war effort, because you can go and you can take these supply places, you can destroy supply trains, you can take over smaller areas. And
you could even interrupt reinforcements coming from wherever for the enemy and things like that. It really is good. I mean, I think we might have come off a little bit negative in this like beta weekend report, but
what are you gonna do?
Guild Wars 2 is completely what I expected it to be, and then more. I was expecting a game which is going to take all these elements of the last 7 years or so of modern MMOs, you know, so like your WoWs and even your EverQuest 2s to a point, and make them better. And it literally does. It's just better. I mean, a couple of quick examples are: you want to travel around the map, that's fine. You can instantly teleport to waypoints. You know, in WoW, you have this, you could argue, totally pointless system of these. You know, like they're almost taxes. Same for the Old Republic and other games like that. You know, you get on the transit system. You sit there for 5 minutes while it takes to wherever you want to go. Guild Wars 2, you double click on the icon, you're instantly there. It's like you're there straight away. You see, it's like a pointless thing they've got rid of. Also, oh god, there was another point. No, it's gone out of my head. Like
that was good. Something that I was going to say very quickly that I was very impressed with as well is that the PvP, when you're low level, you get boosted up to level 80, you know, temporarily for the PvP, but it's a legitimate way of leveling up as well. It's not a free ride to leveling up. You have to do stuff, but it's a way where you can do it, where you could probably avoid going and doing the public quest altogether if you wanted to, but it wouldn't be any less of a challenge, which I think
you've just saved me, and you've just saved me as well. The leveling thing, that's what I was going to say. So in WoW, if you're level 50, you can't go to a level 20 zone and do the content. You can, but it'll be no challenge. In Guild Wars 2, it scales you down to the level of the zone, so it's always a challenge, which is quite good because it means everything's relevant now. Okay, the rewards might not be relevant, because if you're level 50 or whatever and you're doing a level 20 zone, that's not really relevant, is it? You're not going to want the rewards, but you can still have do the quest or do the zone at the challenge it was intended. Okay, you'll be slightly better because you'll have more abilities unlocked, but it's still going to be a challenge. Now, I forgot about this, so I turned up and I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to go back to this zone and finish this skill point quest off, or event. I'm level 18, it'll be easy. They're only level 10. But of course, it put me down to that level. Then so I ran in and started attacking this champion guy, and he's absolutely killing me. I'm like, what the fuck? And I realised, oh dear. But what this allows is for, you know, a lot more content. You don't have dead areas of content, and also you can group with your friends. So if you're your maximum level, your mates just started playing the game, you can play with them. You know, it's not like this stupid overpowered guys with you killing everything, wrecking the experience for them. It's not, and it's like these are little things which are simple, but you've got to ask yourself, why is this not in another game? Even the fast transport and stuff like that. Things like you can access the auction house from wherever you are. You just press O.
The mail as
on the
well.
auction house. The mail is instant. You get it from wherever you are. What's
That's one of my favourite things.
Yeah, what's the point of going to a mailbox? So I mean, summing it up, Guild Wars 2, it literally is what I expected it to be and better, with this massive, ridiculous PvP element attached to it. We only got up to level 20ish, so we can't really give. We only played a restrictive beta, so we can't say, oh yeah, it's really good at the end game and all this stuff. But from what I've seen of it, it does look pretty fucking good, and I would recommend it to anybody at this point. If you're looking for an MMO, I'd say get Guild Wars 2, at least give it a chance, because it's... When people use the term WoW killer, which I absolutely fucking hate, this is the closest I have seen to that. By a long shot, by an absolute long shot.
Oh, that's me.
I mean, you think of Old Republic, this game is an order of magnitude better than that. Like, it's massive, and that was my impression of an random apple fella. Order of magnitude. An amazing
accent was
American
scarily good.
Yeah.
I'm attacking the oil thing.
Again, I'm like you. I don't like the phrase "wow killer" because it tends to be kind of meaningless. But it's even at this stage, even in beta, Guild Wars 2 feels better than any other MMO I've touched, and it's even at this point, by everything having work in progress and this is not finished songs all over it, it still feels quite smooth, and it's not a seamless experience yet because it's still beta, but it's just got a quality to it that sort of comes through in everything you do that makes you think, this was worth it.
It's nice to see a game that actually is quality, like Kiri said, and not some kind of half-baked shitfest like the Old Republic. It was. I mean, it was a good game. I mean, I'd say Old Republic was it's quite a good game for a single-player experience, but it's an MMO. So why the hell would you pay the subscription? Because the MMO aspect of it was a bit shit. This game is massive. There are loads of people everywhere, so you're like, holy shit, I'm in a massive world full of loads of people. If it had a subscription, you'd pay the subscription. I would. I'd gladly pay £10 a month to play this. It's ridiculous. But no, it's free. Supported by some microtransactions and most likely a lot of new content. So I think, and from what I've seen so far, and we both agree on this, is
but you will stand up.
It seems to be quite the game.
I realised as a necro.
Definitely. Everything about it so far. I mean, just get it. Try it. It's worth a try. Even at this stage, even at beta, I would say it's worth you getting the pre-purchase and having a look for the next beta weekend.
Definitely. I would say that as well. Or you could watch our live stream, twitch.tv/Unit Lost. You need to go over there right now and click follow. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube as well, and follow us on Twitter, which is @Unit Lost Gaming. And you can also get us on Facebook, which is /Unit Lost Gaming. So facebook.com/Unit Lost Gaming. So yeah, we've been Stylosa and Kirioff, and this was our detailed thoughts on the Guild Wars 2 beta weekend, which I now need to go to bed to catch up on a massive amount of lost sleep. And if I had my webcam on, you would see the state of me, which is quite bad. We'll catch you next time, people. Toodaloo.